you can check that level for me. Randall. 1 2 1 2 2 2 1 2 2 2 2 2 2 2 1 2 2 1 1 1 2. How's that level on that mic? 1 2. Okay, cool. Two. 1 2. Knew that was gonna happen. 1 2. Yeah, 1
can't say you. You just get what you see. Yeah.
You like this? Imagine, there's no people there, This is nice. Yeah. Like I said, with this, look at it. Can you see this mic? Yeah.
Sit here, but I'm little. Take that thing. John.
Good afternoon, everybody. I hope that seat. We're just about to get proceedings underway. Good afternoon to all of you. Welcome to everybody from outside of the University of the Western Cape to the University of the Western Cape. We're very honored to have you. The event that we are going to be launching this afternoon is an event that we were really looking very forward to as the University of the Western Cape. It's a real historical occasion. It's a very exciting journey for all of us as far as media and the media society is concerned. So I hope we can give ourselves a round of applause. To officially welcome you to the University of the Western Cape, I have great pleasure in calling upon our Rector and Vice Chancellor, Professor Tyrone Pretorius. Please give him a big round of applause. Thank you. My apologies, as per protocol, we'll start with the national anthem. Thank you. Can you please stand?
Israel Constitutional Court Judge, Professor Pamela Dube, Deputy Vice Chancellor, Student Support and Development, all panelists, guest speakers, the board members of the UWC Media Society, UWC colleagues, students, and all other guests, good afternoon. Just as Albie says, it's a great pleasure to welcome you back to UWC. You have walked such a long road with our university as a colleague, as the generous donor of your art collection, and of course as a friend of UWC. Let me, Judge, apologize at the outset for having to go to another academic event. I'm sure, however, that you would understand if I share with you the reason why I have to leave. For the first time ever, the university is awarding a joint doctorate together with the Free University of Brussels on Monday, and 2 of our students will be receiving this joint doctorate. In Europe, it is a requirement that the candidate for a doctoral degree should publicly defend his or her dissertation. And since this is a joint degree with the Free University of Brussels, for the very first time, UWC doctoral candidates will be publicly defending their dissertations around about the same time as this event. But today's launch is truly a wonderful occasion for us at UWC, as we witness the revitalization of a media society on campus, one that will give more voice to our students. I'm sure Justice Sachs will speak about the invaluable role of the media in a post-apartheid South Africa, and the many positive contributions that journalists have made and continue to make in upholding and strengthening our democracy. But while there is much to commend in terms of the media, we also have to acknowledge that it finds itself at a crossroads for various reasons. We know the arrival and the dominance of social media and the proliferation of online publications have fundamentally changed the traditional media landscape. These days, news seems to be everywhere, and traditional media has had to grapple with finding its way as a legitimate, commercially viable source of news. We've also seen trust in the media eroded as never before. Just look at the so-called leader of the free world, Donald Trump, and his favorite tweet when he doesn't like what the media says is fake news. More worryingly, at least here in South Africa, we've seen the low-intensity war amongst journalists as they openly attack and contradict each other with very serious accusations of being Stratcom agents. All of this makes for uncomfortable viewing and uncomfortable reading. In 2019, the annual Gallup poll looked at who are the most trusted and ethical of professions. And strangely enough, nurses, doctors, even funeral directors rate higher than journalists. The media is one of the truth-telling institutions in any society. That they are trusted less than nurses, funeral directors, says a lot and should worry us greatly. It is in this kind of space that our very own UWC Media Society, with its 3 entities, radio, television, and print, will have to find an authentic voice that speaks to student concerns and challenges. During the course of today, seasoned professionals will be talking about the state of South Africa media and its challenges and its complexities. I hope that our student media practitioners will listen closely to the discussion, interact with the presenters, and learn as much as they can. This is a great challenge and an exciting one. I look forward to hearing the Student Center come alive with a new version of Bush Radio. My congratulations to Professor Pamela Dube, to the members of the UWC Media Society, and to all students who we hope will be supporting this initiative. I thank you and I welcome you all warmly.
Can we have another round of applause for our Rector and Vice Chancellor, our host here today? Thank you so much, Prof. Pretorius. Next up, we'll be having an address by the Media Society Board. Unfortunately, the chairperson couldn't be here today, but we're very well represented by our Media, Marketing and Communications Manager. Mr. Hassan Tabada will be addressing you. Please give Mr. Tabada a big round of applause.
Good afternoon, Director and Exec Management, Justice Albie Sachs, the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Student Development and Support, Prof. Pamela Dube, the student leadership structures, members of the media, honored guests, all protocols observed. And that's a very useful way if I missed anybody. The media is undergoing a revolution, as we heard before, as more and more ordinary citizens are becoming publishers and broadcasters, with platforms being democratized. Social media has put the media into the hands of citizens, and traditional media outlets have battled to keep pace. But with this came the advent of the phenomenon of fake news and the prevalence of propaganda. It thus becomes important for traditional media to take the lead in producing news that is fair, ethical, balanced, unbiased, independent, and free of hate speech. As the board of the UWC Media Society, we are guided by the University of the Western Cape's institutional operating plan that puts the enhancement of the student experience as a cornerstone of its strategy. Our job is to create a conducive environment for student journalists and their respective leaders to create an environment for students to lead the charge in reimagining the media landscape. It's our hope that we will cultivate a new breed of media practitioners here at the university and beyond that is cognizant of the crucial role the media plays in our democracy. The board draws from leading industry professionals and respected members of the community surrounding the campus, and it has worked hard to create the kind of governance for the student-led initiative to thrive. It has already put in place a code of conduct and an ombudsman to help the student journalists navigate their way in their practice of journalism. We have facilitated partnerships in the mainstream media, among other with the SABC, to create a learnership exchange for the student journalists and to help them learn about every aspect of the business of creating news, from news gathering, news editing, photography, videography, editing, marketing, advertising, and newsroom management. The students will produce content on newspaper, TV, radio, digital platforms and other platforms, and their content will increasingly be shared through our mainstream media partners as well. So the Media Society launches today with the inaugural Media Mind Blast. It's an attempt for the university and its students to position themselves as the thought leadership in the media landscape. It's the intention to make this a growing annual event, bringing together the sharpest minds in the media world and also in society. On behalf of the chairman of the UWC Media Society, Mr. JJ Tabani and the rest of the board, which includes Prof. Dube as our patron, Ms. Leila Benali as our deputy chair, Reverend Tola Mlandu, myself, Emishle Shokacha, a student board member from UW's TV, Sesetu Seloti of UW's radio, Onke Koi of the core, and Kanti Gama of the SRC. We also have people supporting the board. We have an ombud in place, Mr. Ryland Fisher, who's a veteran editor, and it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge the contribution by our project manager, Mr. JP Lowe. On behalf of that board, I wish to welcome everyone in the audience to this launch and hope you enjoy the engagement throughout the course of the afternoon. I also want to ask the audience to give our student journalists a round of applause. They're the real stars of today's show. I want to thank them for being active citizens and helping to shape the agenda for an important sector in our society. I also want to remind them that they will make mistakes along the way. How they respond to those mistakes will be the crucial thing, and how we learn from it. So make mistakes, make them quickly, and learn from them. Lastly, some of the leading young minds in the media industry cut their teeth on student media platforms here at UWC. Today marks another milestone in the history of this campus as we revive the student-led media at UWC. It is a moment we can all be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we just give a round of applause again to our media communications manager, Mr. Bada. The next lady that's going to be addressing you is a very, very special lady at the University of the Western Cape. Professor Pamela Dube is the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Student Development and Support. This particular function, this particular initiative is done under the auspices of her office. So we have great pleasure in calling her to come and address you. Please give a big round of applause for Professor Pamela Dube.
Thank you very much, Program Director. The Rector has just left, but I will acknowledge him. So to the Rector and Vice-Chancellor of the University of the Western Cape, Professor Tyrone Pretorius, the former Justice of the Constitutional Court, Justice Albie Sachs, we are very happy to have you here. I noticed the Public Protector has just joined us. Advocate Busisiwe Mkhwebane, we're very happy to have you here. Mr. Shikwambana should also be in the audience from the SABC, the regional SABC of the Western Cape. We are very happy to have you here. And of course, our board of directors for the Media Society, the members of the Media Society in all their diversities for the radio, print, and television stream, the SRC president, the SRC leadership, the student leadership that is here with us today, and to all the students, our invited guests that are going to be part of the panel, and all our distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. As we gather here this afternoon, during this very important August month, I'm reminded of Thandiswa Mazwai's song, Nizalwa Ngobani, a song that urges people to be proud of who they are and about where they come from, and which reminds us of how far we have come. In my view, it is an important and relevant song to think about today because it is unapologetically visionary and optimistic about the essence of who we are. Its power resonates with UWC's proud history and essence of who we are as UWC. The sense of self-knowledge, the vision and optimism of establishing a media society was made possible by the willingness and courage of all those students who have turned an idea into reality that we are all witnessing today. When I think about the journey leading to this important occasion, what comes to mind as well is the title of W.B. Yeats' poem, The Second Coming. I thought about it also because of an important history that defines the role and contribution that UWC Radio especially and the Student Voice newspaper played as part of the makeup of UWC as the mouthpiece of students challenging the apartheid system in the 90s. These critical advocacy instruments lost their voice when the UWC Radio and the Student Voice newspaper were led in a different direction, resulting in their unfortunate demise. This second coming brings a very proud moment for me, and I'm sure that the same feeling for the rest of the campus, it's the same feeling that goes for the rest of the campus community, our alumni and our friends of the university as we launch the Media Society and the Media Mind Blast annual engagement that we are launching. It is the unrelenting drive to exceed expectations, to improve on past accomplishments, to continuously renew in an increasingly dynamic environment that allows the university to keep on providing the all-round quality experience that we strive to provide. Peter Drucker reminds us that within a few short decades, society, its worldview, its basic values, its social and political structures, its key institutions, always rearranges itself. Close quotation. We are currently living through such a time. Not only are we reinventing our world, but we must pay attention to the process by which we wish to achieve this invention by focusing on this innate capacity of our youth, our students, to create their future, which is exemplified by their commitment to relive the dream of those who braved brute force and oppression. The South African media landscape is forever evolving, and one of the key platforms to depict these changes is community radio. The dynamic growth of the sector is as a result of a number of stations getting licensed and coming online, as well as the increased relevance of stations in their respective communities, which continues to contribute towards the steady growth of the sector. We might see this growth trend continuing to hold in 2019 as more and more stations perfect the art of focused, locally relevant, and nuanced programming. As data costs begin to plateau, more audiences begin to consume their media in spaces more convenient to them, even for longer hours. This has resulted in an increased number of new audiences emerging. New digital empowered revolution bodes well for the diversity of offers across the media sector at large. Looking ahead, the picture appears that the community broadcasting sector would continue to be a reservoir of talent for public and commercial broadcasting in South Africa. And this talent supply stream will continue to flow, especially because sector-specific training institutions continue to churn out the skills and talent required by the industry. A new cohort of radio sales, programmers, managers, IT, and broadcast engineers graduate and continue to swell the ranks of the stations. This investment into the talent and skills pool continues to yield the desired dividends for the industry. We have taken concrete steps by investing in the equipment, and we will continue building on the current capacity to meet the objectives and support the media society that it requires to obtain a community radio license. We believe that it's important to allow young people to have a space to utilize their voice and speak about matters that are important to them, and to allow for debates and engagements that are inclusive of not just the university community, but our surrounding communities as well, and other relevant stakeholders. In a world flooded with ever-increasing amount of irrelevant information and rhetoric, clarity is priceless. Credibility, accountability, and trust are the key valuable commodities and the new sources of power. However, identifying just who to trust, who is an authority, and who has credibility is not that easy. In the boardroom and many spaces beyond the boardroom, the pressure is always on to have answers right now. Status is given to the dominant voice or the person who can give the quickest reply in the most confident way. And there is a growing tendency to repeat and pass on utterances and images without confirming facts. So if our intention is for the search of truth and for a solution to the problems, we need to embrace instances of "I don't know" answers or "let's consider this" responses so that we can create spaces for explorations or curiosity to flourish and for honest establishment of the facts to take place. Without dictating how the media society should be run and what it should do, I think that it is important to consider that in its multi-layers, the possibility to spread joy, laughter, and connections is possible, while ensuring that listeners, viewers, or readers are empowered with information and analysis of the world around them. The fact that we are deeply entrenched in the communities in which we operate enables a textured and rich analysis that is not always possible in other contexts. As I close, I wish to sincerely thank our UWC students for being at the forefront of this initiative, as this day is made possible as a result of their agency. We are deeply indebted to the contribution of colleagues and our external partners, including especially our board of directors, who give so generously of their time and services and have made an indelible mark in setting up strong governance and a strategy for media society. And the SABC Western Cape, in particular, with whom we have a formal partnership agreement and which has begun already providing training to our students, which complements the efforts of the project management team led by our very able expertise from JP Law that started this journey with us since 2018. As we move forward, ready to face any challenges that may come along the way, it is my hope that the story of the UWC Media Society will provide a safety net of trust beneath the dreams of those willing to keep reminding us of who we are as UWC, in ourselves, as we see ourselves, and in the eyes of the communities that we serve, and about where we come from. It is my hope that the Media Society will remain true to its mandate and will provide a space for critical engagement and become a fearless voice that is predicated on objectivity, fairness, and balance. To the Media Society students, thank you very much. This is your moment. At this point, I would like to call on Sesetu to introduce Justice Albie Sachs, our guest speaker for this afternoon. Thank you. Ready?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a great pleasure to welcome and introduce our keynote speaker, former Concord Judge Albie Sachs. But before I do that, I'd just like to give a brief background of who he is. Now, in 1966, he went into exile. After spending 11 years studying and teaching law in England, he worked for a further 11 years in Maputo, in Mozambique, as a law professor and legal researcher. In 1988, he was blown up by a bomb placed in his car in Maputo by South African security agents. losing an arm and a sight. In 1990, he returned home, and as a member of the Constitutional Committee and National Executive of the ANC, and took an active part in the negotiations which led South Africa in becoming a constitutional democracy. In addition to his work on the court, he has traveled many countries, sharing South African experience in healing divided societies. It is with great pleasure to announce former Concord Judge Justice Albie Sachs.
I wonder how many of you can remember where you were on the 6th of April, 1952. I was a 17-year-old second-year law student. How many of you are 17 years old or more? I guess just about all of you. And I mention that date. Is anybody in this room aware of why the 6th of April 1952 was an important date? It was actually a public holiday. It was celebrating the arrival on the 6th of April, 1652, of a certain Jan van Riebeeck. And we used to learn at school, that was when South African history started. That was when white civilization came to darkest Africa. And it was now the 300th anniversary of that date. And the newly elected Afrikaner nationalist government, made up of people, many of whom had supported Hitler during World War II, was celebrating. They had introduced a new word into the international vocabulary. It was called apartheid. In England they say apartheid. And they officially sanctioned white supremacy as the policy of the country. In the Constitution, only whites could be elected to Parliament. In the law, in the Constitution, an affront to humankind. And the aeroplanes are flying overhead and the armored cars are going through the streets and they are celebrating, and there are about 200 of us in the Salt River Town Hall. Maybe 20% of the size of this hall. 190 black, maybe 10 white. And we're singing. And our songs were mostly very sad in those days. My boye, my boye, my boye, Africa. My boye, my boye. And then everybody would join in four-part harmony. Beautiful, beautiful. A song that's still sung today. Senzenina, 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 Senzenina. And we'd all join in. And suddenly, Dr. Maroka, Dr. Dadu, JB Marks, Katani Lebapapi, volunteers obey the orders, be ready for the action now. Volunteers obey the orders. And they're calling for volunteers. It's the beginning of the Defiance of Unjust Laws campaign. To defy the law that said every African man had to carry a passbook with him day and night. If he couldn't present it on demand to a police officer, off to jail, off to jail, off to jail. For black people to be out on the streets after 9, 9:30 in the cities at night, without a letter from their master or madam, off to jail, off to jail, off to jail. For people sitting on seats marked whites only, even crossing bridges on the section marked whites only. Go to jail, go to jail, go to jail. 6 laws were chosen. And now black South Africa was rising up to defy these unjust laws. And they're calling for volunteers. And the singing is getting louder and louder. And I'm saying to my friend, a comrade, Wolfie Kodesh, white person who'd fought against Hitler up north, I want to join. You can't. Why? Because you're white. We're fighting racism. It's a black struggle led by black people. But in December 1952, he'd reported it to the leadership. I led a group of 4 young white people to sit on seats in the General Post Office in the center of town, marked non-whites only. I've been telling this story quite often to generations who wonder, who were we? What motivated us? What was our thinking? When we were students, what were our challenges? How did we participate in the liberation struggle from our different backgrounds? And I also mention it because I was volunteer number 8,432 or something, and volunteer number 1 was a certain Nelson Mandela. He wasn't yet Nelson Mandela. He was just Nelson Mandela, the law partner of Oliver Tambo, middle-ranking, quite prominent people. He could make some money as a lawyer. He couldn't open his office in the white part of town. He had to carry a pass. He couldn't vote. But he could make some money, and he was giving up the chances of at least living fairly comfortably, voluntarily to go to jail for the rights of his people. And I put the question sometimes, what was the one good thing that apartheid did? And I see the audience getting a little bit nervous. Am I going to do Helen Ziller on you? The one good thing apartheid did was to create anti-apartheid. It enabled Albie Sachs, growing up in a cosmopolitan family, Jews who'd fled from the pogroms, the massacres in Lithuania every Easter. The Cossack troops would come into the little villages and say, the Jews killed Christ, we're going to kill the Jews. And my grandparents would hide in the forest, would hide in the basements. So they fled. They came to South Africa. My dad became a trade union organizer. My mother would say to me, my little brother, tidy up, Uncle Moses is coming. And Uncle Moses wasn't Moses Levine or Moses Kantorovich. Uncle Moses was Moses Kotani, General Secretary of the Communist Party. So I grew up in that kind of a world. And now they're calling for volunteers, and I want to volunteer, and I volunteered. And I meet, in the course of that struggle, people like Oliver Tambo, became the biggest influence possibly of anybody on my life. Nelson Mandela, our common hatred of racism, of oppression, of exploitation. I fast forward to 1988. I'm working in Mozambique. It's the People's Republic of Mozambique. It's the time of the revolution in Mozambique. And it's April the 7th, 1988, the day of the Mozambican woman. That was the day in which Josina Michel died. She'd been married to Samora Michel, and she'd insisted that women had the right to bear arms to fight. And there were conservative forces inside Frelimo who said, no, the men do the fighting in our culture, the women support the men. And she said, no, I want to take part in the nation's highest ambitions. I want to be a soldier. She became a soldier. She didn't die in combat, but she became a hero. And it's the day of the Mozambican woman, and we have morning off, and I'm off to the beach, and total darkness. I know something terrible is happening to me. I don't know what it is. And I hear a voice saying, Albie, You're in the Maputo Central Hospital. This is Eva Garrido speaking. Your arm is in lamentable condition. And I was saying to the darkness what happened, and a woman's voice said it was a car bomb. I faint back into darkness, but with a sense of joy. That moment that every freedom fighter is waiting for. Will they come for me? Will they come for me today? Will I be brave? They'd come for me, they'd try to kill me, and I had survived. I felt joyous. And I knew I was in the hands of Frelimo, not kidnapped, thrown into jail in South Africa. Some time passes. I'm feeling very light. I'm lying on my back. My eyes are covered. And I tell myself a joke. It's about Jaime Cohn, who, like me, is a Jew. He falls off a bus and he does this. It's an old joke. And somebody said, Jaime, I didn't know you were Catholic. What do you mean Catholic? Spectacles, testicles, wallet and watch. He's checking. And for some reason I started with testicles. And I've tried all my life to be macho. And I've never succeeded except for 15 minutes afterwards. The word went round the camps. The first thing Comrade Albie did was reach for his balls. Seemed to be in order. Wallet, my heart, is that okay? No damage there. My brain, that's very serious. Spectacles, there was a crater, but no damage. Watch. I've lost an arm. I've only lost an arm. And I had a total conviction that as I got better, my country would get better. That was April 1988. And we come back to South Africa. We told comrades, we must be disciplined, we mustn't just rush back to the country, await instructions. You could await instructions, I could still be waiting for instructions if I'd waited for instructions. And a certain Professor Dalla Omar, head of the Community Law Centre at the University of the Western Cape, says, Comrade Albie, can you come back quickly? We want to discuss the making of a new constitution for South Africa. So it wasn't Comrade Dalla Omar asking Comrade Albie, because then you have to go through all the different processes. It was Professor Dalla Omar asking Professor Albie. So I'm not undisciplined, I come back. And I stay with him and Farida. I arrived on a Saturday. I climbed Table Mountain the first day. I didn't know if I could do it. A very easy way up the back, right round the top. And the second day, I'm speaking on this platform. I've just come back after 24 years of exile, but I feel I'm at home. I'm at home because UWC was the center of struggle. It was powerful, emotional, united, intellectual, critical, people linking together. I just felt marvelous here. And more than that, I joined the Community Law Centre at UWC. And UWC was the engine room of our constitution making. It's a story going around that Mandela got together with de Klerk and they did a deal. You can get the vote, but don't touch the economy. Okay, let's get our lawyers to make a constitution. Wrong, 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 wrong. We had 6 years of battle, breakdowns, massacres, completely different conceptions of the new South Africa. And the Community Law Centre was at the heart of conceiving of a non-racial, non-sexist, democratic South Africa with majority rule, which meant rule overwhelmingly by black people in South Africa to bring about transformation and change, and protections coming to people not because they're majority or minority or black or white or brown, because they're human beings. And we had to fight against the idea of 3 presidents. It's completely forgotten today. We would have had Mandela on Monday, de Klerk on Tuesday, Buthelezi on Wednesday. I'm actually lying. It would have been 1 year, 1 year, 1 year for each. And they'd have to rule by consensus. And that would have been fantastic for the whites, as it would have given them a veto. The struggle over the Constitution was the struggle against a white minority veto. And protections for human beings against abuse of government through an entrenched Bill of Rights. Fundamental rights for everybody because they're human beings. And including social and economic rights. And opening the door for economic transformation. That was our struggle. And that struggle, in intellectual terms, was pioneered here at UWC. The Center for Development Studies, UWC organization, established workshops we had on the electoral system, workshops on should we have a constitutional court, should we have social and economic rights, the land issue, we had 3 workshops. And the people participating were activists. They'd come off the island. They'd been in the underground, in the resistance. Even those of us lawyers had been in the struggle. I'd been blown up, others had been in jail. And we wanted a constitution for a new, transforming, united South Africa. And UWC was the place. And I'd already chosen UWC because after I was blown up, and I end up in hospital in London. Artwork in Mozambique by the great artists Malangatana, Shisano, and others were in my apartment there. You couldn't get bread, you couldn't get chicken, you couldn't get butter, but you could buy beautiful art. The artists never stopped in the midst of the war, the Civil War, and I had beautiful artwork. And I had to decide what to do with it. And I thought, I can't leave it in Mozambique. They've got their own art. If I take it to England, the artwork is in exile with me. I must send it to South Africa. But I didn't want to send it to the National Gallery. Where to go? UWC, University of the Western Cape. It's in the library. It's not properly displayed. All my documents and papers are in the Maibuya Center. Now they've been digitized. It only took 25 years. So maybe in another 25 years, the artwork will be properly displayed. And it's artwork from a time of revolution, of struggle, of civil war, of suffering. Very, very beautiful artwork. And it belongs in UWC. So these are some of the traditions, if you like, of struggle on this campus and by this campus for the nation. And those of you who take part in these programs, in a sense, are part and parcel of that ongoing tradition. Let me move forward to the specific issue of media freedom. Very hotly contested these days. I'm now Judge Albie Sachs on the Constitutional Court of South Africa. And we had 2 important cases. The one is the case of Khumalo versus Holomisa. I'm not sure if it's Holomisa versus Khumalo. Everybody knows Holomisa, not everybody knows Mr. Khumalo. And the issue was in relation to if the press prints a story about somebody and it turns out that it's mostly true, but some of it's untrue, the law, as it was, the old common law, Roman Dutch law, said the press has to pay up damages. And there was a very famous case in the United States, New York Times versus Sullivan, where the US Supreme Court came out strongly for their First Amendment. Freedom of speech, freedom of speech, particularly in relation to public figures. And that case had a special history Because in the United States, in the southern states where they had their own judges and juries, if there were any rebel movements, any opposition movements, saying bad things, the governor did this, that, and the other, if they made the tiniest mistake, it could be 95% true, but 5% they got it wrong. The governor would go to court and sue and get huge sums of damages because the white juries were protecting white racial supremacy. And the Supreme Court said no. If you're in public life, in the government, you've got to take it on the chin. If people say falsehoods about you, too bad. The political process must be the answer. And the question was, should we in South Africa go as far as the First Amendment to the United States? And we said, we go quite a big distance. We used to have censorship. The New Age newspaper, not the New Age newspaper of 2 years ago, the New Age newspaper of the 1950s, which followed on The Guardian and Advance and People's World, the government would ban it. We'd come up with same newspaper, but with new editors. I was even editor for a couple of weeks. And we reported the struggle. And those editions now are collector's items, and historians get more information from them than they do from all the official journals and newspapers, big commercial newspapers. And the journalists were in the front line. Govan Mbeki was the reporter from Port Elizabeth, the most active part of our struggle. 25 years on Robben Island. Ruth First was head of the office in Johannesburg. She was blown up and killed in Maputo. Her body is still there. We sang so many songs to so many people and we buried. And each time we'd wonder, there's still some space in the cemetery, will I be the next one? Joe Harby, who worked as assistant to Ruth, assassinated by South African hit squads in Harare. People died. People died. We don't want people to die for their beliefs today. You can make an investment of your life, your liberty, but you don't need to die. We've got a constitution, we've got rights, we've got a voice, we can speak, we can mobilize, we can organize, we can vote, we can go to court. But it's a serious business. Truth is a serious thing. The other case we had was the Islamic Unity radio case. Very, very sad case where a guy came from England and he spoke very critically about Israel, and he had every right to do that. Every right to do that on a date commemorating the establishment of Israel. But he went on to say, it's not true that 6 million Jews died. It was only 1 million, and they died of starvation. Now in Germany, if you say that, that's called Holocaust denial, you go to jail. In America, you can say that. The courts have said it's okay. Not okay, it's not something we like, but freedom of speech, freedom of speech. And we were asked to rule on the community radio being sanctioned for broadcasting. But in the end, we decided that the regulations were far too wide and far too sweeping. We didn't have to get to the actual case. I don't know how we would have decided on the substance, the merits of the case. But Pius Lange, who went on to become Chief Justice, wrote, saying how important freedom of speech is in this country, where the majority of people were denied their right to speak, their voice, the right to be heard, the right to contribute, to debate, to argument, everything. Very powerful, very important. But at the same time, we're a country where race has been used to deny people their dignity, where speech can wound and harm and destroy the humanity of those affected by it, particularly those who belong to sections of the community that historically had their grandparents and great-grandparents subjected to gross indignities, and indignities which correspond to fault lines of race in our country today, inequalities in our country today. And so when I go to the United States, I say we don't allow hate speech in South Africa. Whatever your First Amendment says. And just 2 days ago, Justice Mojapelo said flying the old South African flag amounts to hate speech. The argument was it's not speech. He said speech isn't just words in our Constitution, it's expression. Flying the flag is a powerful form of expression. And then there's talk in the Constitution about non-protection of speech if it's calculated to cause harm. But does the harm have to be physical violence? I'm inciting somebody to hit you because you grew up in the Cape Flats? Or can harm be harm to your dignity, your standing, your sense of moral worth? And more the courts are saying harm can come simply by using the K word, whether it's insulting history, it's defamatory implications. It's not just a negative, ugly word. It's a word loaded with pain and historical meaning. Well, that's the context in which you're working. I'm not going to involve myself in the huge debates that are going on now about matters, many of which are before the courts. The courts will deal with them. My colleagues will deal with them. I'm a superannuated judge, and I don't want to tread in their area. But it has been mentioned how important the social media have become. And I was working recently with the Human Rights Commission on the whole question of should there be a law that criminalizes hate speech. And everybody agrees, if hatred induces a crime of beating a woman to death because she's not sufficiently woman, that aggravates the crime terribly. It's not just the particular victim that's being attacked, it's everybody of a different sexual orientation. And if other crimes are actuated by hate, then that should be an aggravating factor for greater punishment. But if there's no other crime other than the hate speech itself, should that be a criminal offense? And my proposal was, we've got to be careful about trying to use the law, it's a very blunt instrument, to solve huge cultural problems in our society, problems of education, values. At the same time, we can't just allow things to pass. And maybe we need to develop a process of where people engage in speech of that kind. You can get a restraining order against them if they continue. That becomes the crime. But there are different ways of looking at these things. The last point I want to make is, in addition to social media, leaks and the use of leaks. I only wish when we had the drought here in the Western Cape, we'd had all those leaks. We could have filled all the dams to 90% with the leaks. But they're creating serious new problems because they're selective. You can't cross-examine, you can't test. And they encourage manipulation and secretive things. I think, and I would just urge those of you who are working as journalists here at UWC, in that sense, be old-fashioned, have sources, check your sources, get verification, look at the context, follow what we decided in the Khumalo and Holomisa case, where we said we want open, challenging media, examining power, unafraid. but you can't be reckless. If you make a mistake, and you might make mistakes, we've got to live with it. The person concerned got to live with it. But you must take reasonable steps to verify. You must take reasonable steps. So there's an onus on journalists to show integrity, not to go for the headlines, not to be swept away by their own prejudices, to check. Take reasonable steps. If you've taken reasonable steps and you make a mistake, you get it wrong, you won't be penalized. But if you don't take reasonable steps and you say something wrong, then you can be in trouble. Okay, good luck to all of you. It's fantastic for me to reconnect with that younger Albie Sachs who came here, stood on this platform, reconnected with my country after 24 years of exile. It's wonderful to see this attentive audience with big eyes, wondering who this guy is, wondering maybe when is he going to stop, which I can answer very, very quickly right now. Thank you.
Please keep the applause going for Justice Albie Sachs. One statement that Justice Albie Sachs said in his address to all of us, which really cut a very fine, lovely notes of pure emotion in my heart, is that he considers the University of the Western Cape home. This will always be your home, Justice Sachs, and you're always welcome by us. The fact that the South African Constitution was drafted at the University of the Western Cape is something very, very special to all of us, and it's something that can never, ever be taken away from all of us. We've earned our place in history, and that is very, very special. Another thing that Justice Sachs said as well, which also just got me thinking on some interesting debates, is that the old South African flag. There's only two places in South Africa where the old South African flag is legally allowed to be shown in public. That is at the Cape Castle and at a government building in Pretoria. That shows the maturity of our democracy. You are not allowed to show the Nazi swastika flag in Germany in a public place for historical reasons, but we can do that in South Africa, which I think is absolutely fantastic. The next item that we're going to be having is the representatives of the media operations. They are the UW's TV, the core, and the UW's radio. They're going to come up and explain to us a little bit about their work. Please give them a big round of applause.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Emihle Sokacha. I am the station manager from UW's TV. I work along with my management committee, which consists of our news editor, our chief operations officer, our programs manager, our sales and advertising officer, and lastly, our ICT training and development officer. Now, I will talk briefly about the representation of UW's TV and the necessity of having a TV stream at the University of the Western Cape, right? So first of all, the UWC Media Society is a TV stream. Having a TV stream permits us as the UWCV to give access to inaccessible information that does not reach the UWC community. And with our proactive mindsets, which help us to plan and produce quality content and depict it visually to leave a striking impression to our audience and promote storytelling, right? With the lack of credible media platforms at the university, the vastness of TV incites a view of magnitude of visuals with our programs that we produce, which are inspired by the culture of the university and the notable events that happen at the University of the Western Cape. Now, we want to evoke curiosity within our community and bridge the gap between the lack of storytelling and also giving the platform to the students of the University of the Western Cape, right? And now we want to challenge and we want to strike and we want to give our UWC community credible and quality assurance so that they can have a familiarity with the content that we produce. Now, UWC, what we've noticed as a TV stream, right, is a number of communities within one community. So here, an aspect of representation matters, right? So, as UWC, we want to honor that by depicting the range of different individuals, the university, and parties concerned with the UWC Media Society in terms of collaborations and partnerships. And hence, our slogan as the UWC Media Society is connecting communities. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Onke Koi, and I'm the new and incoming editor of our newspaper stream, The Core. The newspaper stream is run by myself and the editorial committee, which comprises the following portfolios: the COO, the political editor, the lifestyle editor, the sports editor, our ICT and training officer, our sales and advertising officer, and our news editor. My attempt tonight with this speech is to answer the question as to why media society is important for students. Or rather, let me narrow it down and say, why is the presence of media important for students? Well, there are many ways to answer this question, but I think the most important thing, among others, is that the newspaper, like all other extracurricular activities that are available at UWC, will provide opportunities for students. This is important because UWC is mainly made up of students who come from disadvantaged backgrounds, who are therefore in dire need of skills and opportunities in order to better their lives and careers. Most importantly, the presence of a newspaper publication is important because it is the voice of those who would have otherwise been voiceless. On the 2nd of August, earlier this month, our project, actually we had a site visit to Cape Agas, me and my fellow teammates. On our way back, I remember hearing our project manager, JP Law, when he said, and I'm paraphrasing, UWC Media Society is meant to give a voice to students, even to the students who come from poor, remote villages, for example, in the middle of nowhere. Everyone, when they come to UWC Media Society, they must know that their voice will be heard. I was privileged enough to be present when our newspaper stream was given its name, The Core. It was given its name by our fellow member of the Media Society in relation to its most basic duty, which is to publish issues and events that are at the core of the university. By that we mean matters that are of interest to the university community, matters that reflect the reality of this oasis of community within communities in its beauty and struggles. Our plan for the future is to have a campus newspaper that runs efficiently and caters for the diversity of its community. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sese Tusiloti, and I am the station manager for UW's Radio. I work with an incredible team consisting of a ICT and training officer, programs manager, chief operations officer, news editor, and sales and marketing and PR officer. UW's Radio started in 2018 with just under 25 members. Our team worked tirelessly coming up with draft constitutions for the society and radio. We received endless trainings and workshops, which has all shaped us into being where we are now. We started off not knowing how to read news, not having the slightest idea of what a hot clock was, yet alone what dead air was. However, through the fruitful workshops and trainings we attended, we very quickly got into the hang of things and then started having our own mock broadcasts, where we familiarized ourselves with the radio jargon and what we could do possibly as a team to equip ourselves from all the theory we had learned. Our team started having weekly mock broadcasts, which helped us gain confidence in what we were doing, but also served as trial and error to fully equip us for when we are live on air as a radio station. This very week, we had our very first live broadcast, which was a beautiful learning curve as we saw what works, what doesn't work, and what could be improved. And we got incredible response from our listeners, which we need to carefully consider going into the future. UW's radio currently has 52 members who are extremely passionate and driven and dedicated to making our campus radio a success. We want to be a radio station that promotes student voices and tackles everyday issues that we all face as students, but also provide edutainment. Having this campus radio station means a lot to us, as we are the direct voice of students. It also creates room for a lot of skills development and having fun yet educational platforms to engage on topics resonating with UWC community. And we hope to see UW's radio as a leading campus station in South Africa. We hope UW's radio will also be a tool of empowerment to all those aspiring to pursue careers in the industry. And lastly, we want to be reputable for sending out credible and up-to-date information up to our listeners. Thank you.
We, as the University of the Western Cape, our media society in particular, are very excited about our partnership with SABC Western Cape Province, where they will be equipping our students with the skills that they possess and the expertise that they have as SABC.
We're excited as the SABC about this partnership between SABC Western Cape and University of Western Cape. So we are ready to help the university to set up the campus radio station as the biggest role player in the industry. Of course, we are also expected to help community radio stations. That's why we're here.
How did you manage to get on the bus? We managed to get them a Varsity Cup by just studying first, of course. Otherwise, they can't play for the university teams. And so the studies was the main focus. And then through the studies, get a discipline right and the culture of the team. And I think that is what made us successful. The culture, the discipline, and the camaraderie we had as a team.
Great, okay, that sounds good. You know, they studied before, guys. Take it, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, okay? So now that you're already in the cup, now you got there, okay? You've been working hard and you got into the Varsity Cup. What is the game plan?
Well, the game plan is to go out there and play rugby. But to play rugby, you need some talented players and, of course, support. The most important thing is for you guys, you know, the first years, get a t-shirt like the supporter t-shirt. Come and support us here when we play UWC against, I think, Kovsies the week after. And to make us proud, you know, because we are the underdogs in probably every single game because we're the newcomers there first year. And for you guys supporting us and make us even more prouder will be great. And the players will actually play for you because you are there to support. So get to support this t-shirt and come support the team.
Okay, great. This t-shirt looks nice, by the way. Come on, guys. Come on, hand of applause.
To me, it looks nice on me, you know?
Hey guys, it's the brunch band.
You know what it is. On Saturday at 11 o'clock, tune in to UWC Media Society's social media pages.
Yes.
That's the Twitter.
Yes.
The Gram.
Yes.
And find us there. With
Find
our
us, the
producer.
brunch bench.
And YouTube, baby.
Yes, on YouTube. We'll be there on live and on Instagram and on Facebook. So please tune in.
UDAPS
Radio.
It's so wonderful always to get a big a picture into what is actually really going on. The visuals really paint a 1,000 words. So well done to all of you. Please give yourselves a round of applause. I mean, that's your work. We'll now have an item of entertainment just to move us along with the program. So we'll call upon our entertainment elements. Please do a performance first. Thank you. And we'd also just like to thank our guests that were on stage. Mr. Hassan Zabada, thank you very much. Professor Dube and Justice Sachs.
Girl, if I could take it back, it'd be so bad. I'd be such an angel. You'd think that me and Jesus was cool. Like that, yeah, like that. Everything between us be good. Girl, I know what I should have done. Should have walked away the moment that I saw her coming. But I blew it, really blew it, and lost the only girl I loved. Dear God, if you're listening now, I need you doing thing for me. You see my baby, she done up and walked out. I need you bring her back for me. I know that I was wrong, I was guilty in sin, probably not priority. But dear God, if you're listening now, I'm down here dying, begging, crying. Somebody needs to pray for me. Dear God, if you're listening, thought I was something, really something. In the end, you knew I'd end up with nothing. I was fronting, truly fronting. Girl, I really can't be mad, I had it coming. Guess if I was half the man I know I am, I would be so good that even no problem be jealous of you. It's like that, yeah, like that. Everything between us be good. Girl, I know what I should have done. Should have walked away the moment that I saw it coming. But I blew it, really blew it, and lost the only girl I loved. Dear God, if you're listening now, I need you doing thing for me. You see my baby, she done up and walked out. I need you bring her back to me. I know that I was wrong, I was guilty in sin, probably not priority. But dear God, if you're listening now, begging, crying, somebody ought to pray for me. I'm making you this promise right now. If you can do this one thing for me, I'd be the man that you want. I'd be the man that you need. Church every Sunday, prayers every Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday, and a Friday. Just bring my baby back to me. I need you to do one thing for me. You see my baby, she done up and walked out. Whoa, I know that I was wrong, I was guilty in sin, Maritain. But dear God, if you're listening now, I'm down here dying, crying. Somebody ought to pray for me. Oh, Lord, 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 please listen to my cry. Yeah, please listen to my cry. Thank you.
Okay.